Good afternoon, everybody. It is 12:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is Thursday, August the 5th, 2021. My name's Dave McRae, coming to you live from the VoiceMann Studios in Toronto, Canada. This is episode 197 of McRae Live. And the main topic I want to discuss today is James Wan is back with a new horror movie coming out next month in September called Malignant. He is currently shooting the sequel to Aquaman, but he's got a new horror movie coming out, which I'm looking forward to seeing and discussing. The trailer is out. It's been out for a while, actually. And I was going to discuss this trailer and this new movie actually a few weeks ago, but then the Halloween Kills trailer dropped early. Of course, the trailer was supposed to be released on July the 1st, and some bonehead leaked it, and Universal had to get ahead of it. So that kind of ruined my plans for talking about Malignant. Nonetheless, James Wan, writer, director of, there's Saw, of course, which came out in 2004. For those of you that don't know, Saw was based on a short film, a concept film that him and his buddy Leigh Whannell had created in 2003. And I believe Leigh Whannell was the writer on it, and James Wan was the director. He might have helped in writing, I can't remember. Anyway, it's about a 12-minute short. It's on YouTube if you want to check it out. And then, of course, that led to Saw, and the rest is history when it comes to Leigh Whannell and James Wan. Of course, Wan went on to direct the first Saw film. He went on to direct Dead Silence and that one with Kevin Bacon. Also, of course, Insidious, the first two Insidious films, the first two Conjuring movies. He was a horror guy. He was making his name known in the horror space. And a lot of filmmakers, this is no secret. A lot of filmmakers do cut their teeth in horror because it's relatively cheap. There's a high demand for it. I think the first Insidious was like $1 million, $1.5 million. It wasn't very, in the world of, films, that's an incredibly low budget. And certainly with Hollywood films. And then he branched out a little bit, and he went off to do Aquaman. And he's in the middle of shooting Aquaman 2 right now. And of course, he did that Fast and Furious film as well, Fast 7 or whatever it was he did. And I think James Wan is a very competent director. I haven't seen the first Aquaman. I haven't seen any non-horror James Wan movies because I just don't give a fuck. I just don't care about Aquaman. I don't care about Fast and Furious. I just don't care. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't have fun with them and that I can't, I have seen the first few Fast and the Furious movies. I did see Fast 5 in the theater when it came out, the first one that The Rock was in. That was a lot of fun. But I just don't care. It's not the kind of movie. If I'm bored and looking for something to watch and it happens to be on Netflix, whatever, sure. You know what I mean? But I'm not the kind of person, or if I'm, out with a bunch of buddies or whatever, and they all want to go see Fast 36, whatever. And I'm like, all right, let's go see Fast 36. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. But whenever I see a Fast, I don't make a conscious effort myself to go and see Fast and Furious because I just don't care. I just don't care about the franchise. I could not care less whether they make another one or not. I could not care less. I don't care. Now, when it comes to the superhero films, right? Obviously, you guys know me. I like your staples, your Batman, your Spider-Man, your Superman. I'll always go check those out. But the larger universes that they're creating, I just don't care. I went and saw Joker, of course, with Joaquin Phoenix because, you can call it a superhero film if you want, but it's a psychological thriller. Or a psychological drama. That's what it is, based around, it could have been anybody in that role. They're using the Joker as the catalyst to get your ass in the seat, but it could have been about anybody, right? It's a great character study. Went and saw that not because it was the Joker. Yes, it's interesting when you include that character, but if it hadn't been the Joker and it would have been somebody else, I probably still would have gone to see it because it's the story and it's the concept, right? Anyway, and it's not that I hate superhero movies. I don't. I'm just explaining why I really haven't tried to watch any other films that he's done outside of the horror genre. I just don't. I don't know. Like, you guys know me. I mean, if you've been following me for any length of time, I'm just not. It's not that I'm not, like, some people are into shit and some people are not into shit, right? There's probably people watching right now that just don't care about Star Wars. They just don't care. It's not that you couldn't sit down and watch it and enjoy it. You just don't care enough to make the effort to do it on your own. It's the same thing here, right? It's that kind of thing. So, because I didn't grow up with it. I didn't grow up with this shit. I mean, I was around when this shit, but I mean, like, I didn't grow up playing with the toys or, reading the comics and all that kind of stuff. So I just don't care. But I respect it. I respect, if you do and you love that shit, that's great. But I do appreciate James Wan as a horror director, as a modern horror director. I think now again, I haven't seen Malignant, which is his new one. And we'll talk about that in a second. What I appreciate about Wan, I thought the first Conjuring was probably the best movie he's done, the best horror movie he's done. The second Conjuring was okay. I don't think it's nearly as strong as the first one. The first Insidious I really like too. The second one was okay. Don't think it's as strong as the first one. But certainly what I appreciate about Wan as a filmmaker, as a director, as a horror director today, he's more of a, when it comes to being like a populist, and what I mean by populist, I mean that something that is generally appeals to the general movie-going audience, right? Something that is that's not too cerebral, not too, not too in your head. Like Hereditary is one of my favorite psychological horror films of the last, 20 years, let's say, right? But it's not a populist film. It's not going to appeal to everybody. You know what I mean? It's not, and it's not designed to do that, right? Neither is Midsommar. It's not, there are those kinds of films that are going to appeal to a really select sort of type of movie-going audience. And they're designed that way. That is the point. They're not going to make hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office. James Wan, on the other hand, not that he couldn't do a more cerebral, film like Hereditary or whatever. I'm sure he could, but he hasn't done that. The Conjuring, even the first one, which I adore, is more of that general, Hollywood kind of thing, right? Same with Insidious, But what I like about James Wan and what I really appreciated about the first Insidious, and I remember seeing it in the theater when it came out, was the balance that Wan seems to have. It's like, we're going to make this movie that's got to appeal to everybody. And so you got to have a boom, boom, boom in there, and you got to have a ra-da-da-da, and you got to have a boo, 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 boo. You know what I mean? Like, you got to have that kind of shit. But he seems, I really appreciate the balance. He has the shit that I really appreciate, the stuff that you would that you would see more in the more nuanced psychological, dare we say, more sophisticated horror movies. Yeah. But it's true, right? Smarter storytelling, smarter execution. And a good example of that is in the first Insidious film when Rose Byrne's character is, they just moved into their new house. I think she's doing laundry or something, and she walks from one. It's a tracking shot, so we're following her through the house. The camera's following her from behind, and she walks in between two rooms. And you remember this scene, and you see the little boy kind of facing the corner of the wall, and they draw no attention to it. I mean, obviously, it comes to be like, a minute later, but they draw no attention to it. You just walk in one room through to the other, and if you look to the far left, there's a boy facing the corner of and it's like, what was that? I like that kind of shit. Wan's very good at that stuff, and he's peppered Insidious with that stuff. He's done The Conjuring with that kind of stuff. Like, The Conjuring was a great slow burn, and although I'm not one to really be all into the devil possession shit where you see the demon in the face and stuff, because the first Conjuring film was so nuanced and so well done, it was a terrific slow burn, that when we got to the point where we are seeing that stuff, for me, and I understand, like, you have to deliver on the payoff. It felt earned to me. It didn't peak too soon, right? Like, I really appreciated what he was doing, whereas if we had seen, and all that shit in the first 5 minutes of The Conjuring, it would have been like, lame, click. I probably, click, I was in the theater when I saw it, but my girlfriend treated me to that, actually, which is very nice of her. Shout out to my girlfriend. And that was, but had that happened, I would have been like, oh God, now I got another fucking hour and a half of this shit, So I really appreciate the fact that it was earned. And Wan does that. Same thing happened with Insidious as well. Now, the second Conjuring, we were being peppered with a few more, we were peaking, I'm not going to say too soon, but earlier. We were peaking a little earlier in the second Conjuring film. But still a competently made, decent follow-up. But the point I'm making is that Wan is very good at that. So he's I would actually like to see him do a more cerebral, less populous, more niche-y maybe horror film. I'd like to see him tackle that on. I don't know if he has any interest in doing that. But anyway, so the balance, right? I think he's probably one of the better horror directors today, certainly when it comes to the more mainstream Hollywood horror movies, something that's going to get a huge theatrical release that has an opportunity to make, 70 million opening weekend. And you know what I mean? Whereas films like Hereditary, Midsommar, anything really that is coming out of A24, The Witch, all that stuff. I mean, that stuff doesn't have a hope in hell of making 90 million opening weekend, but it's not designed to do that. If it does, great, but it also, I don't think it gets nearly the wide releases because it's A24, not Blumhouse. But anyway, so, or it has anyway, the point I'm making, I was about to go off on another tangent about something else, but, is the balance. And I appreciate what he's done there. There's something for everybody, I think. For me, one of my biggest issues with modern horror is that it's very cliche, very by the numbers, very dog shit. I rarely watch modern horror films that... I shouldn't say that. I should say that it's rare that a modern horror movie coming out of Hollywood that is a paint by numbers type of thing gets me to the theater. This may shock you, but I rarely go to the movie theater to watch a horror movie. And it's just because when I see it, I'm like, I don't give a shit that this looks like I've been here, done this. I don't care. I'll just wait. I'll wait. The Conjuring got me into the theater. Insidious got me into the theater. What was the last horror movie I saw in the theater? Well, I mean, probably It Chapter 2, maybe? Maybe it was It Chapter 2. Because, of course, then there's the pandemic and everything, right? And we couldn't go to the theaters and stuff. But anyway, so Malignant. So he's got this new horror movie. He did a couple of non-horror films, and now he's gone back. Now he's shooting a non-horror movie right now, as I said. He's in the middle of shooting the sequel to Aquaman. But he's shot another horror movie, an original horror movie that's not based on any current IP or anything like that. It's called Malignant. And I watched the trailer to Malignant. Maybe you guys haven't seen it. I encourage you to check it out. Go to YouTube, just type in Malignant trailer. It'll pop up. Watch it. Let me know your thoughts and what you think below. Now, when I watched this trailer, this is my honest thought, okay? It's my honest thought. If James Wan was, and again, it's just a trailer. Now, the purpose of a trailer is to entice you to go and see the movie. It's supposed to get you excited to see the movie. That's the point. It's marketing. It's a commercial, okay? And there's nothing bad about it. I love the premise, which of course is this woman who thinks she's having nightmares, but she's really having premonitions about people being murdered. I have to watch the trailer again. I don't think it's about to be murdered. She's having these visions while the murders are actually taking place, in the process, something like that. It looks like a polished, very polished, modern Hollywood horror movie. This isn't A24. This isn't independent, more of the grittier, nuanced stuff. This looks very polished. based on the trailer alone, if James Wan's name was not attached, if I didn't see from director James Wan, director of Insidious, The Conjuring, and Saw, and actually I think it goes Saw, Insidious, and The Conjuring. You know what I mean? There's no voiceover anymore. They don't do voices for trailers too much anymore. So if it hadn't said that, we wouldn't be having this show today. I wouldn't be talking about it today because it looks very, at moments, now there are one-isms in there. There's a few moments where I'm like, I like that. I like that. That's James Wan. I like that. He does shit that, a paint by numbers kind of thing doesn't usually do. It's just a trailer. But if his name was not attached to it, we wouldn't be having this conversation because overall, it looks very paint by numbers. Very shit we've seen 1,000 times. But that doesn't mean it is going to be that. And I feel an interesting dichotomy happening with my feelings on this movie. Because it's like, okay, well, it's just the trailer. And I know it's just the trailer. We've seen bad trailers to great movies, great trailers to bad movies, and everything in between. I mean, we know this. But watching the trailer, I'm like, it's heavy in the special effects, which is part of the story. I get that. But it's nothing we haven't seen. Like I'm desensitized, right? I'm no longer impressed by visual effects. Very rarely am I ever like, whoa, holy shit. I think the last time I was blown away was Avatar, sincerely. And it was the way Cameron utilized the 3D technology and everything. And I mean, like, sincerely blown away. I'm never blown away by visual effects. It's like, yeah, that's how, we have this technology now. I would expect that every movie that has a $150 million budget, or not that Malignant has a $150 million budget, but I'm just saying every movie that's got a budget for visual effects, the visual effects are going to look great, especially if it's coming out of Hollywood. So, but it just looks like stuff we've seen before. Concept is really interesting. I didn't really see. There were moments where I saw, but can we please get away? Look, I know it was creepy in the director's cut of The Exorcist with the spider walk down the stairs, but it seems like today, it was like, God, it seems like Hollywood will go, oh, that worked. Hey, Bob, this worked. Let's do it 9 billion times. Ha! It's like, no, dude. It's that thing we see in horror movies where you'll see like the dark shadow and it's like, how many fucking times? It's not scary, man. It's not scary. Like every fucking time. Hey, I know. Why don't we get the girl to go? Hey, I know. Why don't we get the ghost to go? Hey, I know. Why don't we get? It's like, stop. Now, I'm not saying that I saw a lot of that in the Malignant trailer, but there was a couple of moments where this figure, Gabriel, and this is definitely has religious undertones to it, because obviously the girl in the trailer, we see her say, it's the devil, Gabriel. I mean, listen, and I'm not a religious person. Respect to you if you are. I could not care less. I'm not a religious person. I just don't care. But if you are, that's fine. But I know enough to know what certain names mean, and all that kind of stuff. So it's no coincidence that obviously this creature or whoever he is, or the devil or whatever, his name is Gabriel, right? We get that if you know your stuff. So, I mean, visually it looks great. I love the concept. The woman has these premonitions of murders. Actually, I love all that. There's definitely a lot of mood, an atmosphere in there, but mood and atmosphere in and of itself is not enough to entice me to watch a movie or to like a movie. It's how it's utilized against the backdrop of everything else. So, and mood and atmosphere isn't just light and shadow. Mood can be created in the daytime. You can have terrific mood and atmosphere during a nice sunny day. I mean, traditionally we tend to think of more dark, and light and shadow and darkness and night and mood. And I get that. I understand that. But there's more to it than just that. But definitely there's a lot of that. There's a couple of moments where I'm like, oh, I like that. I like that. I hope we get to see more of that. But overall, it just looks like a trailer we've seen before, like to a movie. If it didn't say James Wan, there's nothing about the trailer, literally nothing about the trailer that would make me go, this kind of looks like a James Wan movie. Hey, you know, it kind of looks like a James Wan. No, nothing. You would have said Bob Bobson, you know, directed. I would have been like, okay, cool. Who's Bob Bobson? You know, like there's nothing there. So for the first time in my life, because I didn't get that when I watched the trailer to Insidious. I don't recall anyway. And I don't recall getting this feeling when I saw the Conjuring trailer. I don't recall getting this feeling when I saw the Saw trailer. So for the first time in my life, I'm in regards to James Wan, and I'm somebody that, although Dead Silence wasn't his best work, I didn't think it was awful. So for the first time in my life, I'm cautiously optimistic for Wan's next movie, horror movie. Because the trailers have me a little concerned. That's all. I'm just kind of like, this looks it looks just, you know, but we're seeing a lot of the, you know, all those moments compact into like a 90-second trailer. Wan is very good at slow burn. Insidious has a slow burn. You know, Saw has a good slow burn. The first Conjuring movie has a great slow burn. Will Malignant have a slow burn? You know, and it's not that slow burn is a secret is you have to have a slow burn in every horror film. But for me, I like slow burns because it gives an opportunity for the film to breathe. It gives an opportunity to build fear in stages and tap into the psyche of your audience, right? It's all about not peaking too soon. So, you know, you take us on a journey, you take us on a ride. And the Malignant film, I don't sense that. I think maybe I'd have to go back and watch the Conjuring trailer again and the Insidious trailer again. But certainly I'm not sensing. I'm just cautiously optimistic. It's James Wan. I've enjoyed, for the most part, every horror movie he's done. So I have no reason, based on, you know, the past, based on the pattern we've seen, I have no reason to think that this is going to be a fucking stinker. Like, you know, you go to the theater or you watch it on HBO Max. By the way, I believe it's releasing simultaneously on HBO Max and in the theaters. But I have no reason to believe that this is going to be dog shit. Like, I'm not saying that. There's just some of the the modern horror tropey things we see with supernatural movies, right? So take the common modern day supernatural film, right? And there are certain tropes that we see in those films that we see patterns of over many films, right? One of them, if you have a demon or a possessed person or whatever, is, you know, is that kind of, we tend to see that a lot, right? You know, shadows moving like this and, you know, and stuff. And it's not that you can't use that, but I just hope Malignant, I hope Malignant doesn't rely on that. And it's James Wan, and he's really good at nuance and balance. Like I was saying at the beginning of the show, he's really good at balance. So I'm kind of like, okay, maybe, you know, but I'm a little worried because I wasn't overly blown away by the trailer. But I love the concept. And I think the cinematography looks really good. Like, I like the darkness, not just in terms of light and shadow, but tone. I like the darkness of the tone of the spot, how it's very bleak spot. There I am, talking like a voice actor, of the trailer. I appreciate that. And so I'm definitely going to check it out. I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited about it because it's James Wan. But if this was Bob Bobson, you know, I'd be like, meh, you know. Because it's James Wan, if the theaters are still open next month, because it's James Wan, that's the reason it would get me into the theater. If it wasn't James Wan, I probably wouldn't go to the theater to see this movie. Not because it was a bad trailer. It wasn't a bad trailer. Don't misunderstand me. It wasn't a bad trailer. It just felt a little more pedestrian, which means predictable, essentially. A little more pedestrian, paint by the numbers, than we're used to with Wan. But it's just a trailer. And Wan has no say how his films are marketed. Generally speaking, a filmmaker has no say. That doesn't mean that that can't happen. But generally speaking, he's not cutting the trailer himself. They go off to trailer houses, and it's the studio that does, So, he might see the trailer and go, oh, fuck, why did they show that? Or why didn't they show that? You know what I mean? He may have cut his own trailer very differently. So, it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look bad. It just has me a little, okay, kind of like we've seen this kind of thing before, but it's a new story with a new character, and look, I mean, regardless of what you think of the Saw sequels, regardless of what you think of The Conjuring 3, regardless of what you think of anything after Insidious 2, I mean, the dude has created, I don't know if he's necessarily created, but he's directed and produce the first installments of now 3 mega Hollywood franchises. Saw is now one of the most iconic, regardless of what you think of the, we're talking about stats, figures, box office, pop culture, footprint. Saw is one of the greatest in terms of pop culture, footprint, box office, horror franchises in history. Insidious, same thing. The Conjuring, same thing. I mean, it's like, is this the beginning of another one? Right? Is this first Malignant going to be great? Am I going to walk out of the theater? Are you going to walk out of the theater? Or are you going to, turn off your TV after seeing it on HBO Max and be like, fuck, that was actually really good. Holy shit. And then, in 2023, we get Malignant 2, and then Malignant 3, and then Malignant Returns, Malignant Reborn, Malignant Revenge, Malignant Redemption. It's the R's. It's the R subtitles. Redemption, Returns, Revenge, Resurgence. Stop it, Hollywood. I don't know. I'm definitely curious to see it, for sure. Now, the poster to Malignant, I really like. As soon as I saw the poster, because I saw the poster first before I saw the trailer, and that's what led me to the trailer. I think it was a Bloody Disgusting article or a Screen Rant article or something. And this is back a month or so ago. And maybe the poster has been out for a while. Maybe it's been out for a long time. But anyway, I saw it only like a month ago. And I saw it and I'm like, oh, what's this? Like, it looked very old school, like retro Suspiria kind of shit. You know what I'm talking about? Maybe I can bring up the, hang on, let me see if I can bring up the poster for you here. For those of you that haven't seen it. All right, here you go. Here's the poster here. This is a great poster. Like, this is great. And I saw that and I was like, oh, what's this? It's got a very retro 70s, maybe 80s. I could see this being 80s, but it looks, to me, it's got a very Suspiria kind of old school retro vibe. And then when I read the top there, and the top says, as you can see, from James Wan, the director of Saw, Insidious, and The Conjuring. And I was like, what? I knew James Wan, like, this info about James Wan directing another horror film had been out there for a while. I think that news broke in like 2019. But because of the pandemic and all that shit we've been going through, and everything, I'd totally forgotten about it. Totally forgotten about it. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, what? It's like Scooby-Doo. Ready? What's going on, Scoob? Anyway, so I was like, wow. And there was a trailer and I was like, what? So I checked it out. And then immediately I was like, oh, I really like this concept, like the premise. The premise I really like. But by the end of the trailer, I was like, okay, little things we've seen before, but it's Wan. And, even like, I mean, even Dead Silence or Death Sentence, I think was the one he did with Kevin Bacon, if I'm not mistaken, which could be perceived as his two weaker films, I guess, in the thriller horror kind of space. Certainly when you get to Dead Silence, I know some people are like, Dead Silence, whatever. But even that movie's not, in my opinion, is not awful. It's not an awful film. It's serviceable. It's fine. It's creepy. It's eerie. It's an interesting, like, I love the set design and all that kind of stuff. And, is there a probability that this is going to be a bomb? Like, are we really going to walk out of here going, no, didn't like it at all. Like the probability is not waning that way. I mean, it's really, there's a higher probability based on the patterns we've seen that this could be a really good film. I mean, if you were a betting person, you would want to bet in that favor that's going to be, at the very least, pretty good. Maybe not amazing, but it was all right. It was pretty good. So I don't know. We'll see. It says there September 10th in theaters and HBO Max. But I love this poster. Kudos to whoever designed this poster. This is great. But one of the last shots of the trailer is our lead here in bed, right? And it kind of looks like this. And she's on her side and she's facing the camera. And then behind her on the other side of the bed, you see Gabriel. He starts coming up, this dark, shadowy figure starts coming up over it. It's like, there's a little bit of that. And I'm like, like, why couldn't, like, if it was me, I wouldn't have had him do that. I would have had him just rise on the other side of the bed or something like that and maybe reach over and then cut to black or something, just something like that. And again, it's not that, there aren't places for that. It is creepy when it's done right, when it's done well, when it's done, when it's done right, it's done well, it's done like in the right situation. It's still creepy. It's not that novelty's worn off completely. It just feels like we see that a lot, and there's nothing about that for me. Like I'm over that now. Like when The Ring came out in 2002 and what's her face is coming out of the TV and she's kind of doing that kind of thing. That was fucking creepy as shit. It was creepy as shit. Even the original Japanese film from 1998 was creepy as shit. But, we're like 23 years removed from that now, and, we've how many movies can you count on your hands and toes, and your hands and feet where it's like we've seen, between all the possession movies and the demon movies and, it's like, is there another way we can convey creepy without doing that? Maybe you do it once in the movie or whatever, but I don't know. I felt like I saw it a couple of times in this trailer, but maybe I'm wrong. I've only seen the trailer twice. But anyway, the feeling I had walking away from the trailer was just, I love the premise. Looks good. Like it looks like it could be good. You know what I mean? That's what I'm going to say. It looks like it could be good. But it's Wan that's drawing me in. It's his name. It's his name recognition. And that says something. That says something about how Wan handles modern day horror, because I'm not expecting a more cerebral, nuanced, intelligent Kubrick kind of horror film from James Wan. That's not to say that he couldn't do it, but that's not what he's doing. He's a populist Hollywood filmmaker. So I expect that this movie is going to have more of a general appeal. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, because I find that he does that balance really well, where there's a little something for everybody. So there's a little something for maybe, the horror people like me that really appreciate more of the nuanced, more intelligent approach. And maybe there's more of the, for those who don't give a fuck about that stuff and just want to be, entertained. And he strikes that balance. I just hope there's a slow burn. I hope he doesn't go away from that and he doesn't peak too soon and we have a nice sort of build to whatever we're getting to. But we'll see. We'll see on September 10th. I don't know, folks. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. What did you think of the Malignant trailer directed by James Wan? It's coming out September 10th. I mean, if you're a big fan of, the first in Conjuring, the first Insidious, especially the first Saw film, you may want to check this out because James Wan is back and it's another horror movie from him. And, you know, this could be the beginning of another franchise. Now, you might sit there and go, well, no, how could, hey, Saw became a franchise, Insidious became a franchise, and The Conjuring became a franchise, and they all have one thing in common. James Wan directed the first installments of all those franchises. So I'm just saying, you know, this might be the beginning of something new. I don't know. I don't get that feeling when I see the trailer, but I don't know. We will see. We will see. I don't think any super chats came in. Let me double check. I don't think any did. If you did, let me know, and I'll have to go back and have a look. But I don't think any did. Let's talk. Yeah, there we are. Let's go to the chat room and see what you guys are saying. What did you guys think of Malignant? If you're watching after the fact, comment below and let me know your thoughts. What did you think of the Malignant trailer? I want to know. And, you know, does this look a little pedestrian to you? Am I the only one that, although it's James Wan, and that alone has got me excited about this movie, are you like me in the sense that it's kind of like, yeah, it does look a little pedestrian. Like it looks a little paint by numbers, stuff we haven't necessarily not seen before. I mean, listen, that opening, or I don't know if it was the opening shot of the trailer, but one of the opening shots of the trailer where the girl is in the kitchen, I think, right? And she's there and she's looking all around her and everything is evolving and changing. The visual, that's cool shit. That is from an artistic, from a creative standpoint, that is really cool. But it's nothing we haven't seen before. So that in and of itself is not enough to get me to the theater. I mean, we've seen films in the last 20 years that do that shit, right? It's all about execution. And one of the things that has made James Wan famous in terms of being a competent horror director is not that he's directing horror movies we haven't seen before. It's his execution and handling of the material. That's what makes him the more modern, more very prominent in the horror genre space today. Again, a populist filmmaker, but certainly, you know, that balance. So that's what I'm hoping to see. That's what I'm hoping to see. We'll see, but that's what I'm hoping to see. David Coe sends in $4.99. Thanks, David. Says, if Netflix or Hulu had come to you and said, we love your idea for It's Me, Billy. You can either have a 90-minute movie or 8-episode series. What would you choose? That's a good question, David. I'd have to talk to Bruce, but off the top of my head, I think a 90-minute movie or an 8-episode series. I think probably a 90-minute movie. I don't think 8 hours or 4 hours would be necessary to tell our story. I mean, certainly if, and I say that because obviously if it's 8 episodes, it's either going to be an hour, which is 8 hours, or if it's, you know, a half hour, that's 4 hours, right? I think we could tell our story over 90 minutes, maybe a bit longer than 90 minutes, maybe like 100 minutes or something. But certainly I think we could tell our story in probably 90 minutes. I don't think Black Christmas needs a series, like unless you were going to tell like an anthology series. I don't think the character of Billy, because Billy really is a human being and there's nothing supernatural about him at all. I mean, he has the supernatural mystique, you know, in terms of there's an aura about Billy because we don't know anything about him or his past. And you don't really see him. I mean, certainly in the original film, you don't see him. You see his eye and things like that, and you see his silhouette. In It's Me, Billy, you see more of him in the sense of his body. You get to see more of an objective view of his body and the long hair, but you're still not seeing his face and all that kind of stuff, and that was on purpose. And you don't really know anything about him in It's Me, Billy either. So there's still like an aura. There's a presence about him, right? But he's a human being. He's not Freddy. He's not Jason. He's not Michael. He was never intended to be that. He's a prowler. He's just a schizophrenic, you know, whatever he is. He's a dude. I don't think that's a story that can be told over a series. I think just an extra film is fine. You know, because because over 90 to 100 minutes, you'd get to know a little bit more, but just enough to keep the mystery there, and then you end it. You know, unless Black Christmas was the title of like an anthology series where one of the episodes is The Prowler, right? Which it's, you know, the sorority house. And then maybe you follow up with It's Me, Billy. You know what I mean? And you have sort of the extension in the end of that. And then episode, you know, 3 or 4 is, you know, something else, something other weird, you know, some weird story that happens around the holidays or something, right? Like I could see that, you know, but I don't know if the story of Billy is ripe for such a long thing. So I would tend to say probably a film. Probably a film would be best served, in my opinion. Thank you for the super chat, David. Appreciate that. Jonathan Ball says, Dave, would love to see James Wan direct a Paranormal Activity. I would not like to see James Wan direct a current Paranormal Activity. Because the current state of Paranormal Activity is just run-of-the-mill pedestrian dog shit. It's just all, you know, gooly shit we've seen 1,000 times over. I mean, what the hell are they up to now? Part 9? I mean, it's like Fast and Furious. I don't want to see James Wan direct a sequel to any of the Paranormal Activity movies. If James Wan had begun the Paranormal Activity films, well, that's interesting. Maybe he reboots it. Maybe they want to reboot it, start fresh, start over, start from scratch as if nothing ever happened. Well, maybe that's interesting. But the fact that he's got to like, I don't want to see him direct him. I think he's too smart for that. I think I don't think it just doesn't make much sense to me. For me, I wouldn't want to see that for me, but that's me. Alex Schambach says, Dave, why don't filmmakers fight harder for their vision of a trailer or their movie out? Maybe easier said than done, but it just seems like studio meddling is blatant. It should be more contained. Well, it's because of contracts, because they can't. I mean, they can't. You know, the studio has the final say. And, you know, listen, it depends. Again, I'm speaking on a very Cliff Notes kind of way. There are a lot of variables at play, but I'm trying to give you sort of the simplest explanation. You know, the studios get the final word because they are the distributors, and it's understood that that's in the contracts, that's in the agreements. You know, filmmakers are contractually obligated to say, and they will fight to a degree, but a filmmaker can't take on a studio and sue them because there isn't a leg to stand on, unless there was a breach of contract. Like, unless in the contract it said, we're going to give you full creative control, and they don't, well, then that's something that they can, you know, then yeah, they can, but every film, see, that's sort of the catch 22, right? When you become a filmmaker in the studio system, where you are making movies for Warner Brothers, for Universal, for Paramount, you know, they have the final say of what goes out because they are the distributor, they are the studio. They may or may not be putting up some of the money. So, you know, it's a big deal. And you know, so the good thing about being a quote unquote Hollywood filmmaker, it's more about the studio system, because you can be an independent filmmaker and still be making films that are Hollywood, if you know what I mean. Anyway, but the studio system generally it's great because you don't have to worry about money. You get paid well, you get your film, and the cost of marketing, distributing, and people seeing your movie is all taken care of. You spend nothing. You have to spend anything. And depending on who you are as a filmmaker and your status in the industry, and depending on your contract, you may forego some of your salary because you think this thing's going to be a hit at the box office and you get some of the, you know, a percentage of the box office. Not every filmmaker has that. That's not offered. That's not negotiated, right? I mean, you know, there are tiers, right? There are people like, you know, me that could, you know, come along and make a movie for, I don't know, Paramount or Sony or, you know, whoever. But I'm not, but who the fuck am I when it comes to filmmaking, right? It's like, you know, so likely that's not going to be a thing in my contract. That's likely a thing if you're like, you know, Christopher Nolan, right? So there's the good side to that, and in the sense of that your movie gets seen by everybody, you know, or has an opportunity to be seen. It's all taken care of. The downside is that you do give up a lot of creative control. Now, how much creative control you have at the end of the day, can depend on the relationships you forge with the studios, with the distributors, with the producers. If you have a really good working relationship, most of what you want out there may actually get out there, but that's not a guaranteed thing. The great thing about being an independent filmmaker, now remember, independent doesn't mean amateur, okay? That's a thing that I think a lot of people seem to forget. Amateur is amateur. Amateur means that you're making movies that are you're making them on your home, on your iPhone with your friends. You're not making movies professionally with a professional crew, with professional equipment, all that kind of stuff, right? You don't necessarily work in the industry. They're home films. Independent filmmakers, again, I'm giving you the Cliff Notes version, generally is outside of the studio system. So they're not distributed or funded by major studios or production companies like Blumhouse, right? So if you are an independent filmmaker, you can still be professional, but you are largely looking for like government grants, film programs, Indiegogo, crowdfunding, things like that to create and distribute the films on your own. And there are a shitload of independent movies that wind up in Cannes and wind up at TIFF and wind up in festivals all over the world, professionally shot, legitimate, independent productions. And a lot of the times the studios go to these festivals because they are looking for productions that don't yet have a distributor. That's what Paranormal Activity did, right? Searching for independent films that may not have a distributor yet. And the studios look at films that, they go, hey, you know what? We think we can make a fuckload of money off that. That looks really good. Let's, who are these guys, right? The good news about being an independent filmmaker is that because you are writing, creating, distributing essentially the film on your own, you get full creative control, and you don't have bureaucratic studio executives breathing down your neck saying, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, or we won't distribute your movie. And there you go. It's all you, right? There wasn't anything in It's Me, Billy that we couldn't have in there because it's our fucking movie. We didn't have anybody over our shoulder saying, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, right? We do whatever the fuck we want. If this was a studio release, there could have been a studio exec breathing down our necks saying, you have her in the back seat, right? With the bag overhead and you track it. We don't like that. We don't think the fans are going to like that. We're like, well, no, but the fans are going to like that because it means this, this, and this. Nah, we don't like it. Why don't, instead of her being in the back seat, she's out on the lawn and she's lying on her back on the lawn in the snow with a dagger in her and blood coming out of her mouth. Some of you in the chat room might be going, hey, that's really cool. But we would have been like, well, no, we don't want to do that. And then they just have to say, well, you either fucking do it or we don't distribute your movie. It's that simple. Do it or we don't put out your film. Again, I'm giving you a Cliff Notes version, a very black and white version to keep things simple. There's a lot of variables that come into play with what I'm saying that can alter and change and massage and noodle what I'm talking about. But I'm just trying to give you sort of the basic idea of it. It's contracts, man. They can't, and they can fight for it. They can, request a meeting and talk to people and say, what about this? What about that? And they can talk to Bob, who's the producer, and send them back to the studio and say, can you talk on my behalf? And they can fight for you. But at the end of the day, if a major studio is distributing your movie or marketing your film, that's it at the end of the day. There was that article with Halloween Kills in Total Film magazine where David Gordon Green talked about the trailer and said, yeah, it was a constant battle. Basically, he didn't say this verbatim, but you could read between the lines of what he was saying, that there was shit that you saw in the Halloween Kills trailer that if it were up to him, he would not have put in the trailer. But it's not up to him. You know what I mean? So that's, and filmmakers fight that all the time. But he's getting paid handsomely. He gets his name on the movie. It gets distributed. You know what I mean? I mean, it's and again, that doesn't mean that every film a director makes, there's studio meddling. The studio, well, there always is, but the degrees of what the studio meddling is can vary. Sometimes you get studio meddling, like it's like, fuck off. And then sometimes it's like, oh, that wasn't that bad. They want me to do this instead of that, and they want me to change that instead of that. Not a big deal. I'll do that. You know what I mean? Sometimes that happens too. So yeah, it's just they don't. It's in the contracts, man. They can't just go and say, I want this, damn it. Well, we don't give a fuck what you want. We want this, or we're just not going to put out your movie. It's just that simple. So it sucks, but that's the catch-22, right? If you're playing by the rules in the studio, hey, you get your movie distributed to everybody, HBO Max, Netflix, fucking movie theaters. But you may sacrifice, you may not get exactly what you want out there. If you're independent, you get exactly what you want, but nobody may see your movie. Nobody may see your movie. But people might not see your film because you don't have the money to distribute it all over the world. So it's like, is there a way we can combine these two things? Like, can we, but again, there's a lot of variables at play. Let me see here. Doug Dial sends in $5. Thank you, Doug. Says, Dave, have you ever seen the 1990 TV movie Buried Alive? I don't know if I have, Doug. I don't know. Who's in it? Jordan Ellis sends in $1.99. Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate that. Hi, Dave. What is the first horror movie you ever saw? Ooh. Well, I'm 42, so that's got to go back to the 80s. Probably one of the Friday the 13th or Elm Street movies. Probably, yeah. I'd say maybe like, Friday 2 or 3 or Elm Street. No, it was probably one of the Friday movies then, because I was already 5 when Elm Street 1 came out. Came out in 84. I was born in 79. So I would say it was probably one of the Friday the 13th films. One of the Friday the 13th films, or maybe even An American Werewolf in London. It's entirely possible because I remember watching that movie at home on VHS with my family. That movie came out, 80, 81? So let's say this was 83, and I was like 4, So, I mean, that's not a horror movie, but technically it is. So it might have even been that. Yeah, it was one of those early 80s horror films, for sure. I don't know what one exactly, but it would have been one of those movies, for sure. All right, I don't think I missed any other super chats, did I? I don't believe I did. I don't think I did. Let's see here. What else we got going on? You guys are talking amongst yourself. That's good. I love it. That's great. The 2010 JM Horror Guy says the 2010 Buried Alive movie was pretty good. Are you talking about, was it called Buried Alive, or is that the one with Ryan Reynolds? I think it was just called Buried, wasn't it? I think it was just called Buried, but I can't quite remember, but I think it was just called Buried, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see here. Dun, 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 dun. Scrolling back, see if somebody I haven't got yet. The Horror Counselor says, Dave, my ending idea. Your ending idea for what? My ending idea was if they brought back Friday 13th today, we see Tommy Jarvis Part 6 at a restored Crystal Lake looking onto the lake, smiling with the OG, and the theme playing, then cut to black, no Jason. Your ending idea, if they brought back Friday 13th today, your ending idea for that Friday 13th movie? Well, I mean, it sounds cool. I'd have to know what the story was that led up to that ending, and if that ending would make sense to the story that you're telling leading up to it. As a visual, it's a cool visual for sure. It's a cool visual for sure. Robert Thidoff says, Dave, despite the amount of years it has been, which movie, in your opinion, has the best chance to ever have a sequel? E.T. or The Goonies? I'd say The Goonies. E.T., no way. The Goonies, I'd say. The Goonies has the best chance for a sequel, even though The Goonies has a very slim chance for a sequel. And that's not just because of the death of Richard Donner. I mean, let's be honest. Richard Donner just passed away, okay? And the Goonies was, 36 years ago. They had plenty of time to make a Goonies sequel. It's not like, Richard Donner's dead. Oh, I guess it's not going to happen. No, it fucking wasn't going to happen. Like there was always rumblings about it and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, come on. How fucking, like, this whole idea that we just couldn't agree on, fuck off of that shit. I don't buy it. Listen, not that writing isn't hard. It is. But to write a Goonies sequel, come on. Give me a couple of months. I'll have one for you. You know what I mean? Like, it's not hard to come up with concepts and ideas. I just don't think they care enough to do it. I don't think the studios care enough to do it. And remember, for years, it's only been the last 5 or 6 years that we have been in this nostalgia craze. Really since, it was there a little bit before, but Stranger Things, when it was released in 2016, blew the doors off, and now all of a sudden for the last 5 years, we've been in this nostalgia sort of thing, old TV shows coming back, old movies coming back. Prior to that, people didn't really care. So yeah, I don't think either, really. I don't think either, but yeah. Darren Sand says Goonies. Yeah, Darren's not a big fan of the Goonies, I don't think, right, Darren? I'm a huge fan of the Goonies. I love that film. I think it's great. Darren, it's blasphemous what you're saying right now. It is absolutely, unequivocally blasphemous what you're saying right now. There is not, Darren, what do you not like about the Goonies, Darren? I'm putting Darren on the hot seat right here, folks. Darren's not the only one that doesn't like the Goonies. There's lots of people who don't like the Goonies. But I love the Goonies, though. Yeah, definitely my favorite kid movie from the 80s, for sure. But, it came out, I was 6 when it came out, so I was sort of, prime age for that kind of stuff. Rented it, watched it. I loved it. I adore that film. I think it's a lot of fun. I know Darren's not a big fan, I don't think, but I don't think I know why. I'd be curious to see what Darren says. Let's see here. Amar Allergic. Dave, have you seen Don't Hang Up? No, I have not. It reminds me of Scream. The killer utilizes more modern technology to stalk his victims. I think you would like it. I've never heard of it, but I will make sure to check out Don't Hang Up. Sounds interesting. Darren says the fucking screaming and shouting is non-stop. I've heard that criticism before, in terms of the kids, the ad-libbing and sort of the talking over each other. I actually don't mind it because it's very much what kids do. I understand it's a little less controlled and a little less sort of, you do get more of the traditional, I speak, you speak, I speak, you speak, certainly in the film. But it never bothered me. It never bothered me. I think it's the same thing. And again, I only speak for me, of course. I totally can see what you're talking about, 100%. Fuck, shut up, 100%. Fucking kids. Let's face it. I was at the zoo, not yesterday, but the day before. My girlfriend and I went to the Toronto Zoo. We try to get to the zoo at least once or twice a year. We love going to the zoo. We love looking at the animals and all that kind of stuff. We love that. And it's a nice day to be out. It was a beautiful day. We're walking around. Sun was shining. Great exercise. And the Toronto Zoo is very big. So you certainly get your exercise. And of course, there's families out with their kids and all that kind of stuff. And listen, if you have kids, if you have small kids, all the power to you. All the power to you. I have nothing against kids. I don't have kids. I will never have children. But I by choice, I don't want to have kids. But if you have kids, I think that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not talking about, it's just to say that. But we're walking around. It's just the two of us. It was great. And of course, you hear all the kids screaming. Yeah, Maddie, no, stop it. If you don't stop it, we're going to take you home right now. Okay, everybody, look, come on. No, look at the camera. What, Billy, why aren't you looking at the camera? Oh, for God, goodness, but take that out of your mouth. Where'd you find that? Was that on the floor? Oh, for goodness sakes. You hear that, right? And I turned to my girlfriend and I said, I feel like Mama Fratelli, where I want to just stop and, say, kids suck. And it's true. It's true. I'm telling you. I mean, listen, kids can be amazing, but fuck, kids suck. And so totally, I can, that's true. Darren says even Donner struggled with it. He did. Absolutely. It's definitely the energy of the kids that you see in the film was all there when the cameras were not rolling as well. And there's an old saying in Hollywood. They say, don't make a movie with pets or kids. I mean, making a movie with pets or children can be a fucking nightmare. So I can totally understand it. But the adventure and the sense of childlike wonder and I love it. I adore The Goonies. It's my favorite kids movie from the 1980s, hands down. I adore it. And, but I mean, come on, I totally can understand. Yeah, kids suck. Let's just put it that way. Darren follows up with, I was also weirdly into Italian splatter in 1985. Goonies didn't appeal to me. Well, there you go. I mean, that's it too, right? I mean, it is what it is. Totally understand that. But yeah, Mama Fratelli, I think she got it right. Kids suck. They do. Listen, if you have kids, I'm not saying your kids suck. I'm just saying, shout out. I mean, listen, being a parent, if you are a good mom and a good dad, it's the toughest job in the world. It is. It's the toughest job in the world, hands down. I never wanted to have kids. My girlfriend as well. So, we lucked out that way that we met each other. That was very important to each other, not wanting to have kids. All my friends have kids, so I play Uncle Dave a lot. But I have just no desire to have kids. I never have. I really enjoy coming home from a long day or whatever it is to nothing. Now I have a cat, of course, but a cat, there's an old saying that having a dog is like having, obviously it's not exactly like having kids, but they're comparing cats and dogs, right? Because dogs are obviously more responsibility than a cat. There's an old saying that says, having a dog is like having a kid, but having a cat is like having a roommate. And it's kind of true. And I have a cat, as you guys know, Veda, a black cat named after Darth Vader, but she's a girl, so we had to name her Veda. And she's adorable. I love her. And she's great. I come home, she greets me, we hang out, we watch movies. The only responsibility I have is to feed her and scoop her litter box, of course, but and to play with her. I mean, obviously there is a responsibility when it comes to cats, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. But yeah, kids, shout out to all the great moms and dads out there, and fuck you to all the terrible moms and dads out there. There we go. Let's see here. Did I miss any other super chats? Let me just scroll back. I don't believe I did. The last one that looks like it came in was from Jordan Ellis. I believe I got that. Okay, let me scroll down. And let's see here. Reese Wilson says, my girlfriend and I don't mind babysitting our nieces and nephews, spoiling them, but we like handing them back. Oh, it's true. That's a saying too, right? Like, I don't mind. It's great playing, Uncle Dave, because you can give them back. It's like rent a kid. If you're like, I wonder what it's like to be dad. I wonder what it's like to be a dad to a kid. You know what? I'll just rent a kid for an afternoon. So, you call up, your brother or your sister. Hey, can I take little Tommy to the movies? Sure. You take Tommy to the movies and you're like, hey, this is great. It's like I'm pretending to be dad. Hey, whoa, hey, come on, son. And then at the end of the day, you're like, oh, that was great. There you go. Now I got to give it back. It's amazing. It's amazing. Let me see. What else we got going on? Scrolling down. Winter Rose 444 says, best part of being an aunt or an aunt, depending on how you want to say it, is getting to say, Aunt Winter Rose loves you. Now go home. Yes. Exactly. I could not agree more. JM Horror Guy says, rumor has it Veda secretly watches Halloween 5 when Dave is working. No, that rumor is, I'm debunking it right now. Veda has amazing taste in horror movies. She's a cinephile, folks. Veda is a cinephile. She's too snobby not to be. She's too elitist. Veda is too elitist to like Halloween 5. I'm just saying. I mean, you should see her prancing around the fucking house. She's just like, she fucking owns this place. She owns this place. She fucking owns it. She owns it. It's funny. When I first got her, I bought her a little cat bed, right? And it's so funny. I put the cat bed on my bed, but on the other side of the bed, right? Because my girlfriend and I we don't live together. And that's not for any bad thing. We just enjoy it's just how we enjoy our relationship. I mean, she comes over and she hangs out here and she can sometimes spend, days here and all that kind of stuff as I do, at her place. But we really like having our own spaces. Maybe we'll live together. Maybe. But right now we don't. So now when she is over, obviously I would have taken the bed off my bed and all that kind of stuff because obviously, we do sleep in the same bed. But what's fun is when I first got Veda, I would put the cat bed on the right side of the bed. I sleep on the left. And Veda got on the bed and she's like, are you fucking serious right now? It's like, why would I sleep in a little bed on a gigantic bed? That makes no fucking sense. Like, I can tell she's thinking this, looking at me. She's like, you want me to sleep in a little fucking bed on a bed? That makes no fucking sense. And I'm like, and she never did. She never did. So I had to take the bed off and I put a blanket down and she's like, yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. That's fucking right. I own you, bitch. Veda's adorable. She's actually not like that. But she had that look on her face like, are you fucking serious right now? You want me to sleep in a little bed on a bed? I'm just going to fucking lie on the bed. I have a gigantic bed here. I'm just going to lie on the bed. It's totally true. It's hilarious. I love it. I love her. She's great. Same thing with the couch. If I'm sleeping on the couch. If I'm sitting on the couch, but the thing I love about her, she's a lap cat. Veda's a lap cat. So she won't sit beside me on the couch. She has to be on me. And of course I have a recliner. So I recline up like this and she'll get in and she'll settle in and she'll be on my lap and we'll watch a movie together. It's great. I love it. But she's got that look on her face. It's always like, you want me to sleep in a bed on a bed? That makes no sense. Makes no sense. And oh yeah, I mean, really at the end of the day, you begin to realize that it's really her place and you're her roommate. Like, I mean, that's really what it is. It's her fucking house. It's her place. I'm just her. She allows me to room with her. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's what it is. It's her place. And I knew that the second it was like, I'm not sleeping in a fucking cat bed. That's a fucking cat bed on a bed. Why am I going to sleep in a little contained bed on a bed? And I felt like such an idiot. Now, I'm telling you, I knew she was thinking all of that just by looking at me. The look she gave me was like, no, I don't fucking think so. I love her. She's great. She's such a great cat. Such a great cat. Let's see here. What do we got? Evil Alex says, I have surgery tomorrow. Going to be in hospital whole weekend. I heard you watched Halloween 2 in hospital with your father. That's cool. Sounds like a great memory. Yes, it was, Alex. This was back when I was 15. I had never had chickenpox in my life. And because, normally you get chickenpox when you're like, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, right? And for whatever reason, I was able to completely miss it. And I finally got it when my younger half sister, because she was only, when I was 15, she was like 4 or something. She got it. And then I got it. And I was very sick. And they do say that the older you get, the more dangerous chickenpox can be. And I was very sick. And so what happened to me, for those of you that don't know this, I was 15 years old. I was lying on my couch. I was under the weather. This is 1990. Well, it was early 95. So I turned 16 in 1995, but it was January 95. So I was almost 16. And I'm lying on my couch and I was missing exams. There were school exams I was missing because I was home. I couldn't go to school. And and the last thing I remember is watching the end credits to America's Funniest Home Videos with Bob Saget. And the last thing I remember is there was a horse on TV and the credits, the overlay of the credits were rolling over it. And I remember stretching. And then the next thing I remember is waking up in the hospital 2 days later with a tube down my throat and a tube up my nose. Yeah, you're probably thinking, whoa, what the fuck just happened? Well, make a long story short, I had a seizure. And my dad had just come home. My dad was hosting a sports show on a sports channel in Ottawa. And he had just come home and he was upstairs. I was downstairs in the living room watching TV, and he was upstairs taking the makeup off his face because he had studio makeup on his face. And I think he was taking it off. And my stepmother like hollered to him saying like, Earl, get down here. Dave's having a seizure. There's something wrong with him. My dad came downstairs. I was having a seizure. I was flopping all over the place. And it was serious. They called 911. The firefighters showed up. An ambulance showed up. It took them about 25 minutes to get me onto a stretcher because I was so combative. And they didn't know what was happening. Like nobody knew. It was very scary. I don't remember any of this. I'm only telling you this because this is what I was told. I remember nothing. I was out. And that's what the body does, right? I mean, when the body, when your body is being attacked, your body shuts, because it's kind of like, you don't want to see this. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's amazing that our bodies have that kind of thing, So my body was like, you're about to go through something pretty fucking crazy right now. So we're just gonna shut you down. We're just gonna shut you down. Okay, you don't need to see this. And that's what happened. And then I was transferred to the hospital, and then the hospital there figured that I was better suited because it was chickenpox related, they felt, and I was 15. They transferred me to CHEO, the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, because they would be better equipped for somebody of my age. So I was taken by police escort, and I was in an ambulance taken by police escort. It was a snowy, wintry night because it was January in Ottawa. Fuck. And I arrived there, and they didn't know whether I was going to live or die. Like they sincerely did not, because they didn't know exactly what was happening yet. They did some brain scans. They were able to put me into a self-induced coma. So essentially, I was in a coma for 2 days, and self-induced. And self-induced. No, I didn't do it, but they did it. I forget what the technical term is. A self-induced coma? No, a something-induced coma. Anyway, and it was so serious that they said to my dad that his mother should come down. My mother obviously lived in Toronto. My dad and my mom had been divorced for many years. So my mom drove all through the night, and it was a big deal. This was a huge thing. Anyway, long story short, they found out that I had encephalitis from chickenpox, and it attacked my brain. Like I had actual chickenpox on the brain. My brain had swollen, and so they didn't know. I mean, it was very, very serious. I was in the ICU for I don't know how long. And of course I was isolated because I was down a hall in my own room, isolated. And all the nurses, when they would come in, they would have like fucking contamination suits. Not really. I think it was just masks, I think. But it felt like, because I'm 15, I'm like, what's going on? Because obviously I could have been still very contagious. I spent 12 days in the hospital. And it was crazy. It was a crazy time. I lost 2 days of my life, had encephalitis because of the chickenpox, and eventually the swelling in the brain went down. I don't remember anything. Some people have asked me, do you remember any like near-death experiences or anything like that? And it's like, well, I don't know how close to death I was. But I mean, certainly if there had been no medical intervention, I probably would have died. Maybe, I don't know. But I don't remember anything. No, I don't remember anything. I don't remember them talking to me. I don't remember. I just remember watching America's Funniest Home Videos and then waking up in the hospital 2 days later. And I remember the first person I saw was my sister Jill. She was at the end of the bed going, because they were starting to bring me out, like they were taking me off of the medication, bringing me out of the induced coma, right? And that's what I remember. And I remember being so thirsty very thirsty because, my mouth was open for like 2 days because I had a tube down there. So I was very thirsty. I remember that. And then I spent the next 12 days in the hospital recovering, and then I went home. And then like 3 months later, I returned to hockey and I scored the winning goal, putting my team into the playoffs. Like it was insane. But I had to go back to the hospital for regular EKGs or whatever it is they do on your brain and stuff, to make sure that my brain was functioning correctly, that there was no major residual effects or anything like that. And yeah, so that was that. So anyway, long story short, because there is, I could go on and on about each day that I was there, but my dad, when I had moved to, I think I was out of ICU and I was in a different spot, my dad came up. My mom had purchased, it's over there somewhere. My mom had, it's in there. I can't get to it because of all the It's Me Billy shit. But my mom had bought me, to cheer me up, Halloween 2, because I didn't have Halloween 2 on VHS. And so she bought it for me, and she brought it to the hospital, and I opened it. I was like, oh, this is great, and then my dad came up one night to spend some time with me, and they reeled a television in with a VCR, and I was like, Dad, you want to watch Halloween 2? And my dad had never seen it. And he was like, all right, let's watch Halloween 2. But it was so cool because we turned off all the lights in the room, because I was in I was still, even though I was no longer in ICU, I was still in my own room. I wasn't like in a room with like another patient or something. It was my own room. It was actually really fucking cool. It was like being in like a fucking hotel. Of course I get free food and shit. It was great. So my dad, so it's just me and my dad, or my dad and I, if you're a fucking English teacher. And so we put it on and we watched, and my dad knew, of course, who Michael Myers was and all that. I mean, I used to dress up, like him for Halloween. And I think my dad had seen the first movie when it came out, but he had never seen the second one. Well, my dad loved it. My dad fucking loved Halloween 2. He loved it, but I think he loved it extra because we're in a hospital in a dark room watching Michael Myers tear shit up in a hospital. It was really cool. It was an experience I'll never forget. Now, obviously, that wasn't the first time I had seen the movie. I had seen it, a shitload of times. But it was the first time my dad had seen it. So watching my dad watch it and him being like, oh, this is so great, so creepy. And the hospital and it being night, and it was nighttime too. It was the hospital at nighttime. So that was really cool. So yeah, that was really cool. Good luck on your surgery, my man. Hopefully it goes well and that things are okay. And I'm sure it will. I have confidence that it will. But yeah, that was my hospital experience. It was awful. It was crazy, but I made a full recovery and here I am. I don't think I'm any stranger or than I was before, or maybe it's made me stranger. I don't know. But yeah, that's that. Okay, let's keep going here. Let me see. I didn't miss any super chats, right? Did you guys send in any? Because I'm not seeing any over here. Did you guys send in any while I was going on that huge fucking? I don't think so. I'm scrolling back and I'm not seeing any. Oh, no. It looks like Jordan Ellis was the last one. Okay, cool. Colin McCormick says, the 10 days I was in the hospital after my cardiomyopathy was the scariest time in my life. It was during the peak of COVID, no less. Well, that definitely would have been scary for sure. That definitely would have been scary for sure, my man. The horror counselor says, Dave, can you do the Dr. Loomis speech as Jeff Goldblum? I've always wanted to hear it in the Jurassic Park. I was I'd have to work on that. I couldn't do it justice out of the gate. Let me think on that. I'll have to think on how to get the cadence right. I'm not really sure. All right, let me see here. What do we got? What do we got here? We got 10 minutes. 10 minutes left in the show, folks. 10 minutes left in the show. Reese Wilson says, wow, watching H2 in a hospital at night, I'd have been pulling the covers over me a little tighter that night. Well, I think I might have if I had never seen it before. But I had seen it 50 times before that night. And my dad had never seen it, but my dad didn't get, my dad left, right? I mean, after we were done, we hung out, my dad left to go home. So he didn't have to spend the night in the hospital. But I'll never forget too, this is a funny thing. When I was lying in the hospital, and this is at night, this is maybe like, so I'm hooked up to an IV, right? And when the IV bag is done, the little thing will beep, like beep, beep, to let you know it's done. I'm 15 years old. I don't know if that, if, oh my God, I'm not having an IV bag, if that means, oh my God, like, do they need to change it like right away? Can you wait 5 minutes and then change it? Like, I didn't know. And I also didn't know that there was a little button beside my bed that I could press and it alerts the nurses out at the desk. I didn't know that. So I don't know what time it was, maybe 2 a.m. I don't know. My IV bag begins to go up, beep, beep. Now I'm sure they know. I'm sure there's something out there that tells them. But it's beeping. Well, there's no nurse that's coming, right? So I'm like, nurse, 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 nurse. I'm yelling for the nurse. Not realizing there's a little button beside me that I could press, right? Nurse! Oh my God. It's just so funny. And finally, a nurse comes in and is like, there's a little button there. And I'm like, oh, sorry. I felt like such an idiot. I felt like such a stooge, because and then sure I look and there's this little like button, beep, beep, that you press and it alerts the nurses out there. Fucking funny. But I was like, nah. I'm like, am I gonna die? The bag is empty. Nurse. They must have been like, what the fuck? I mean, this is all they would have heard. Nurse. Nurse. They would have been like, is that kid down the hall in room 6? Is that what the fuck's going on down there? Nurse. Nurse. They're probably like, oh, his fucking bag is out. It's funny shit. It's funny stuff that happens when you're in the hospital for 12 days. Maybe I was in ICU the whole time. I think I was in ICU the whole time. I just wasn't in isolation the whole time. Although the I in isolate, I think that does mean that, right? No, it's intensive care. ICU means, I think the I in ICU is intensive care unit, not isolation care unit. I think it's intensive care, I think. Anyway, so I was in isolation when I was in the coma, and then maybe I was in isolation the whole time. Fuck, I can't remember. It was 26 years ago. I have no idea. Or 6 years ago. Over 26 years ago now. All right. Let's go on here, Dave. Shut up. Thinking out loud. Dave Bob Petway says, can you imagine watching Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 in the hospital? I'd pull the plug myself. Well, it's just the opening, right? I mean, the Halloween 2 from 81 takes place, like the whole movie takes place there, right? You know what I mean? So, but I get what you're saying. Let's see here. What do we got? Evil Alex says, I'm going to do the same this weekend, Dave. You should try it. Nurse. There's a little button right there. Oh yeah. No, I knew that. I just was testing the lungs. I mean, I was in a coma for 2 days. I just wanted to make sure I still got it. There was something else that happened too. There was that, and there was something else. There was one other thing that happened that made me, that's a funny story about the hospital. I can't remember. I did remember I was able to go for walks, not outside because it was the winter, but down like the hallways and stuff. They allowed me to come out and go for walks down the hall with my, my IV thing. I remember that. I don't remember much else. I mean, I remember a lot, but I don't remember. And I remember I get visits from friends and whatnot. It was a crazy time, man. It was very scary. Very, very scary. I mean, people have died from encephalitis. So dying was not, I don't know how close I was to death. But certainly, let's just put it this way. If you have chickenpox and you have a seizure and your brain swells, that's close. I mean, that's closer to death than I ever want to be, you know? So, I mean, you know, even if it was like, just, oh, you were just 20% closer. Sorry, you know, the brain ain't supposed to swell. So, you know, I lost consciousness. I mean, I don't know. Was I breathing? Yeah, I was breathing, but I lost consciousness. So that's a little too close for, that's a little too close for comfort for me. Yeah, nurse! Danita Brown says, please just let me breathe, Dave. I'm at work and can't laugh out loud. Your hospital memory is too funny. Oh, sorry about that, Danita. Sorry about that. My apologies. Nurse! What the fuck? Nurse! Nurse! Who the fuck is that? I don't know. Jonathan Grant says, I'm glad you're here to tell the story, Dave. You and me both. You and me both. Yep. You and me both. And I've never had any issues. Like I never, like, even though it affected my brain, I never had any issues. I never, not that I know of. I mean, never, I don't, like, it's not like I went off or I went on to have like, you know, headache issues or cognitive issues or anything. I don't, I'm in a full recovery, which is, I mean, you know, maybe it's luck. Maybe it's also because of my age. I was young, so, you know, relatively healthy. I mean, maybe if that had happened, you know, now or older, maybe not so much, right? You know what I mean? You know, I think when you're younger, you tend to be more resilient, perhaps. Crazy stuff, though. Let me see. And that's just my assumption. I have no idea. I mean, I certainly don't want to, you know, downplay the medical care I got either. I mean, I got tremendous medical care, obviously. Holly Klein says, did you make sure to hold the back of your gown closed when walking the hall? I hate that. Oh, I hate that. No, because because I wasn't in a gown. Like I was there for 12 days. So I was able to actually, they like my parents, or my dad, I should say, brought me some clothes. So I was able to put on like a pair of shorts and, you know, like a hoodie or a shirt or something. I was able to actually be in that. They allowed me to be in that. So that was good. That was good. Yeah, I was in the hospital gown initially because they had stripped me. I wonder what happened to the clothes I was in. I think I was in a gray tracksuit or something. And I don't even know. I don't know if they ripped that off of me or because I was breathing. It's not like they didn't have to do CPR. I don't think. So maybe when they got me into a coma, they were able to just take it off me or something. Because I was naked. Like, I mean, when I woke up, I was naked because they had the, what's that thing not to get too personal here, but this is, you know, a real life shit, right? They had, what is it called? Is it a decatheter or a catheter or something? They had to, you know, put in me, because obviously, you know, they didn't want me peeing all over the place. So like they had to go through all of that because they're putting me in a coma. So they had to, you know, they had to take care of all that. So I do remember when I woke up, obviously I had the sheets on me and stuff, but I was naked. I do remember that. So obviously they did strip me, but I'm just trying to think of what I was in when I would have gotten there. I don't know, probably a tracksuit. But I don't even know if I got that back. I don't remember. I have no idea. But you know, I mean, yeah, but no, I was able to walk around in shorts and a t-shirt. Catheter, that's it. A decatheter. Yeah. Like the decathlon? Catheter, that's right. Yeah. So I did have that in me for sure, which made sense, you know. So a decatheter. It's when you're running the decathlon with a catheter in you. It's whoa, there go my headset. My headset just fell off, folks. Hey, this is what I look like with ears. All right. Not too much longer. What do we got? Lord Brian. Lord Brian says, Dave, if you could only keep one series in the memory bank, which would you choose? Star Wars, Indiana Jones, or Halloween? A series in the memory bank. Oh, I'd probably choose, well, it wouldn't be Halloween because the series largely is dog shit. It would be, I mean, we'll see what happens with kills and ends. But right now, I mean, I couldn't care less if they got rid of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. I really mean that. And that's not to say that I don't enjoy certain aspects of those movies, but, you know. Star Wars or Indiana Jones? Maybe I'd have to get rid of Indiana Jones. I love Indiana Jones, but Star Wars is it's a deeper film in the sense of, you know, it's the hero's journey. There's a lot of mythology there. There's a lot of spirituality there. And I think those kinds of movies can really uplift you and bring you hope and that kind of stuff. So again, that's my measuring stick, right? You know what I mean? Like that's like whenever I get asked, what's your favorite, this or this? What's the best, this or this? What would you get rid of, this or this? I always then, you know, turn the question on you. Well, what are we measuring? You know, what would be my deciding factor and why, right? So for me, it would be about what movie could continue to move me emotionally. Although I will say the ending of The Last Crusade is an emotional one too. You know, that's about love, loss, parents, acceptance, you know, Indiana, let it go. Because that's the first time that he ever calls him Indiana, right? You know, Dad, why don't you call me Indiana? We named the dog Indiana, you know, and you, the dog, you know, but for the whole movie, he's calling him Junior. That's all, because he's always wanted his father to accept him. He's always looked for his father's acceptance. You know, he's always tried to gain some sort of, to see, you know, his father loves him, but he's never really felt that. And at the end of the movie, so that's that'd be hard to give up, because that's a real father-son moment, a real moment for the character's arc, for the whole series, really. It was a beautiful way to end it. So that would be a tough one. I mean, I love Temple of Doom. I love Raiders of the Lost Ark. But overall, maybe I'd get rid of Indy, maybe. I don't know, man. I don't know. That'd be really hard. That would be very, very difficult to do. Very difficult to do. Let me see. Okay, I'm over time. We'll get one more in here, and then we will call it a day, ladies and germs. One more, and then we'll call it a day. All right. Let's see. Reese Wilson says, Indy short round sharing an embrace after Shorty frees Indy from the black sleep is heartwarming moment too. It is. I don't think it's as strong as, sure, it is. I don't think it's nearly as strong though as that father-son, that moment, because that's full circle. That's his dad. And you can see through the entire movie, because we've never seen Indy in that way, right? Indiana Jones was, you know, he was the tough guy in Raiders. He was the tough guy in Temple. And in Last Crusade, we start to see a vulnerability to him. We start to see that when he gets around his dad, he's like a big kid, because he's never really felt fully accepted by his father, you know, and we see that. And he's constantly wanting his father's acceptance, his father's acknowledgement. And, you know, there it is there, you know, Junior, you know, what does he say? Give me your other hand. I can't hold on. I can almost reach it, Dad. I can almost reach it. Give me your other hand. I got it. And then it's like, you know, India. Now he says something that's going to reach him. He can't reach his son through Junior. He reaches his son through calling him Indiana, you know, and it's that moment where it's like, you know, son, you know, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? And it's such a great moment. So I think I get what you're saying. I do. I mean, in the realm of Temple of Doom, that would be, you know, I guess a moment. But I don't think there's any moment in any of the Indiana Jones films that is like that moment. That's a great fucking moment. That's a great fucking moment. All right, folks. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me on episode 197 of McRae Live. Thank you to my amazing moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Shore, Darren Sands, and Chris Baber, for doing what you guys do. I really appreciate it. Thank you so, so much. And thank you to the super chats that came in today, the non-super chat questions, of course. And look, if you're watching right now, or if you're watching after the fact, comment below and let me know your thoughts on the Malignant trailer from James Wan. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I want to know your thoughts. Are you cautiously optimistic like I am? I mean, this is Wan. He hasn't really let us down yet, but there's something about this. I'm like, I don't know. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. What did you think of the Malignant poster? I like the poster more than I do the trailer. Not that I'm saying the trailer's bad or I'm not going to like the movie, but the poster is like chef's kiss. Yeah, it's good. I really like that poster. Very retro, 70s, 80s vibe to it. I really like that poster, and I'm pulling for it. I want to see this movie. I'm excited about it. But comment below and let me know your thoughts on what you think of the Malignant trailer, directed by James Wan, his new horror movie coming out September 10th in theaters and on HBO Max. That is going to do it for me. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you guys soon. Cheers.